Is this a civil war, a communist insurgency, or just another hyper-polarized presidential election year? I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, so I would begin by saying it's clearly a hyper-polarized presidential election year. And I wonder to what extent it has become that because there is a communist insurgency going on with groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I most certainly don't want to call this a civil war because, first of all, I wouldn't want it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You put that idea out there enough and it can become a civil war. That's how easily bad ideas and false information take hold. And we're already seeing that dynamic play out with the demonstrably false narratives pushed by Black Lives Matter. And I remember back in 2016 when even news outlets were saying we were having a civil war. Even then I thought this is an exaggeration. But this year in 2020, not so much. I don't think it's unreasonable to get the impression that this may be a civil war considering just how brazen Antifa and Black Lives Matter have managed to take a hold of cities like Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, not to mention New York City, Chicago, Minneapolis, Minnesota, where it all began with George Floyd, and now Kenosha, Wisconsin, and how they've intimidated small businesses in cities most people forget even exist, like Louisville, Kentucky, where a Cuban-owned bodega was literally extorted by Black Lives Matter activists, demanding that they not only put up their propaganda signs, but that they hire about 23% Black employees and in management positions no less. And that they had to purchase their supplies from Black-owned businesses, at least 23% as well. Why they didn't go for 25%, I don't understand. And if they didn't do that, they had to pay at least about 1.2% of their net profits to Black Lives Matter, or else. Then there was the shameless physical attacks on people attending the Republican National Convention at the White House, where even senators like Rand Paul weren't safe. And Black Lives Matter activists demanded that he say Breonna Taylor's name without realizing that Rand Paul was the senator that wrote a bill against the type of no-knock warrants that led to her death. In her honor, the bill was named after her. Of course he knows her name. But these people are either so grossly misinformed to the point of showing that they are mentally challenged, or they're attempting to grossly misinform other people, facts be damned. And when a major political party like the Democrats plays this down, and more than half of media outlets don't bother reporting this, but are all too eager to sensationalize and exploit another predictable but sadly justifiable shooting of a Black man by police officers, as was the case with Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, this is how societies can find themselves headed for a civil war. Simply through deliberate misinformation and the omission of so many facts and perspective by one major political party and their media allies, especially during a presidential election year. Which, by the way, it amazes me how that simple fact escapes so many people. This is why we're at each other's throats now, because there are two major parties that are trying to wrest the reins of power from one another. And while many people, myself included, have argued that it's not really two parties, it's just the same status-seeking, power-hungry sociopaths creating the illusion of a false choice, in actuality, it's not for nothing why this split exists. And not only here in the United States, but all over the world. Without getting into a whole history lesson about the origins of the terms left and right stemming from the French Revolution, which was another civil war, there is a time and place for liberalism, and there is a time and place for conservatism, and most people have a really difficult time calibrating between the two. To top that off, there is a time and place for government, regulations, and taxes, and then there is a time and place for private business, a free market, and profits. And people who naturally lean more towards working in the public sector with their idealistic good intentions for helping the less fortunate, they always try to solve social problems by simply raising more taxes. And many of them become career politicians who view the public in terms of taxpayers and guaranteed voters. Think of people like Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and Chuck Schumer. People whose wealth wasn't created by their own businesses. They either inherited their wealth or married into it, and in some cases, acquired it through unethical, even illegal means. And then there are other people who naturally lean more towards working in the private sector and are way more pragmatic and have to exercise tough love when it comes to surviving in the inescapably competitive nature of business. They view the majority of people as customers and/or cheap labor, especially the less fortunate and particularly the less educated. It's not in most business owners' interest to have most people understand that a lot of what they sell is useless and that what they offer in terms of pay is probably below market wages. Think of people like Jeff Bezos, and especially Donald Trump. But these business people also get into politics, which is why it's not for nothing why Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post and not the New York Times. Now, I'm just guessing, but I'm willing to bet it's not simply because Jeff Bezos is a frustrated journalist at heart. It's because the Washington Post is located in Washington, D.C., where many regulations that will affect his business and bottom line are created. It's also not for nothing why at one point Warren Buffett also took an interest in the Washington Post. And this is clearly why someone like Donald Trump finally took a chance and became president. Because just like he asked many black voters in 2016, "What have you got to lose?" he probably figured the same thing for himself. What have I got to lose with taking a massive gamble at the presidency? Even if I fail, it'll be a hell of a publicity stunt that will garner me billions in free advertising and marketing. But that's what I'm guessing just as well. Just like I'm guessing that we're probably watching a communist insurgency take the same chance with all the inevitable chaos that comes with a presidential election year, where not only the presidency is up for grabs, but many mayor, governor, and congressional positions are also up for grabs. This is why we, the people, who aren't as interested in becoming stratospherically wealthy and much less politically powerful, we get caught in the middle, which is why we can't take our eye off the ball. But we also need to keep things in perspective. That's why you don't want to be disinformed by the Democrats or Republicans, liberal or conservative ideologies, and much less the left or right-wing extremists. That's how they divide and conquer. And to the victor always goes the spoils. By the way, this drawing and many others of my artworks are for sale. Please feel free to contact me via the links below, and thanks for watching.